Hey everybody, Steve here, and today we're going to talk about the biggest problem I had when I was on a plant-based diet. Now, the big problem I had on a plant-based diet was for about 4 months, and it was that I had to eat way more food than I ever had on a meat-based diet. Now, I believe in eating meat and veggies. I'm that type of a guy, but we're going to go over an example to show you how much you would need to eat as a plant-based vegan type of guy, and you can make a decision on your own on whether it's sustainable. So let's get to the example. So let's say we have a 40-year-old man, weighs about 180 pounds. He's on a plant-based vegan diet, no meat, who just wants to maintain his current muscle mass. So the question is, how do we figure this out? Well, we have to go to a macro calculator that will tell you how many calories and protein and carbs and fats that you need to eat in a day. So according to the protein calculator, this person who exercises 3 to 5 times a week, has a sit-down job, and just to maintain his current muscle mass, he would have to consume 169 grams of protein a day. We're just going to round it up to 170. And he would also have to eat about 2,253 calories a day. So the question is, what does 170 grams of plant-based protein look like? Now, here's some examples, and as I went through this, you will see how big of a hurdle it is just to maintain your muscle mass. So let's take lima beans, for example. Lima beans have 11.6 grams of protein per cup. Sounds pretty good. Now, when you do 170 divided by 11.6, that comes out to 14.65 cups of lima beans a day. Let's talk about green peas. They have 8.6 grams of protein per cup, and if you do the math, that comes out to 19.76 cups of peas per day. So let's go back to the bodybuilding special broccoli that only has 3.7 grams of protein per cup. 170 divided by 3.7, you come up with 39.54 cups of broccoli a day. That is impossible to ingest that amount of food unless you're a competitive eater. And remember, this is just to maintain this person's muscle mass. So what happens if this person wants to build muscle? So this person would have to take in 206 grams of protein a day, up their calories to about 2750. And let's go back to our favorite, lima beans. When we do 11.6 grams of protein per cup of lima beans at 206, it comes out to 17.75 cups of lima beans a day. Let's go to green peas. I like peas, 8.6 grams of protein per cup, 206 divided by 8.6, you end up with 23.95 cups. And what does this look like? Well, if you ever seen a number 10 can, 3 kilograms or 6.6 pounds of peas, that's what that looks like. And by the way, this number 10 can gives you 20 cups of the 23.95 cups that's needed for peas. Yeah. Broccoli, 3.7 grams. This is going to get ugly. You're going to need 55.67 cups of broccoli a day to build muscle for that. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, it's obscene the amount of food that you would have to eat. Now, think of it this way. What happens if you believe in some of the experts and bodybuilders and fitness experts that say that you have to consume 1.5 to 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight to build muscle? How much is that going to be? Now, there's another reason that this is very problematic, and it comes from the human body. Okay, the normal stomach can hold up to 4 cups, or basically 1 liter of chewed food, according to Medline Plus, 11 January in 2018. Now, this is a problem because for the plant-based and vegans that they would have to consume an obscene amount of vegetables or plant-based, and your stomach is only designed to handle about 4 cups. So you see the disparity between being plant-based and maintaining muscle mass and even building muscle mass. Those things don't seem to line up really well. Now, as I said, I'm a meat and veggie eater. And the benefit of that diet, besides, providing those missing vitamins and nutrients and other things that vegans and plant-based diets don't have, is that meat has more condensed amounts of protein than we see with vegetables. And it tends to not overload the stomach as much. That just works for me. That's all I'm saying. Now, I'm not saying get off a plant-based diet or that it's bad or being a vegan is evil or whatever, because every nutrition plan has its own hurdles that we need to overcome. I have my own hurdles with my meat and veggie diet, different than a plant-based diet or somebody who does fish or whatever diet that they have. Everybody has their own little hurdles that they need to overcome. The problem I've found is that a lot of plant-based folks and vegans do not look at the reality of the situation when it comes to building muscle or maintaining muscle, especially when we get into our senior year. Now, again, I'm not against a plant-based diet, but when we're talking about being seniors, I'm 56, and I see that the reports and the studies show that you lose about 8% of muscle mass each decade, or about 30% of your muscle mass between the ages of 65 and 85. That's concerning to me because with sarcopenia becomes a lot of problems with falling down. You have brittle bone disease, osteoporosis. There's other things that, I fall and break a hip and I can't get up, all that kind of stuff. I want to mitigate those things as much as possible. Now, the good news is that sarcopenia is totally reversible. And you should start now so it doesn't become a problem later. That's the whole idea of being preventive in health and fitness, is that you don't end up being that skinny old person who breaks every time they fall down on the ground. Now, the other thing I need to talk about are plant-based protein shakes, and they are out there. There's still not as much protein in those shakes as you have with like whey protein or soy protein. And so if you're on a plant-based diet, obviously you need to supplement that with some plant-based protein shakes. And you probably need to up those a lot more than you think, because you're not going to be able to maintain that muscle mass. It's a lot harder to build that muscle mass because of the quantity of food that you have to eat. And that can cause problems later on when you become older and sarcopenia comes into play. And again, the whole purpose for me personally is to be healthy and fit, to gain muscle, to maintain muscle, so that as I get older, in my older years, I will have many more years in my golden retirement age that I'm on, compared to people who are going to be plagued with sarcopenia, that are going to be plagued with a variety of other diseases, of those people who are either obese or don't eat enough. There's a lot of people out there that don't eat enough protein or carbs or fats, and then they shrink down and get really, really skinny, and then they have osteoporosis, they break bones, they're brittle, it's real easy to break. My grandparents were an example of that. My grandfather was in World War II, Korea and Vietnam, and he was really active, but as he got older, his activity level went down, and so did his nutrition go down. So he ended up shrinking down, became really, really skinny and frail. And of course, he didn't do a lot of resistance training. It got down to zero. And so his body said, you know what? I don't need to keep strong bones, so I'm not going to divert those minerals and all those things that I need to maintain my strong bone or my skeletal structure, because there is no resistance. If there's no resistance, there's no need to build those things and keep them strong. So my grandfather, my grandmother, my great-grandparents, they all fell to sarcopenia, and they ended up having a lot of medical problems, physically, even, to the point of mentally to some degree. And there are studies showing that if you are deficient in certain minerals and vitamins and so on and so forth, that normally comes through a normal diet, seniors don't eat a lot. I mean, think of this. I remember my grandmother, I'd visit my grandmother after my grandfather passed. She would have like a couple of pieces of toast a day and maybe a sandwich and coffee and tea and maybe some fruit. And that was it. So is there any wonder why she shrunk down into next to nothing? Because as you get older, you don't want to eat as much. So that's why we need to take the time now to build a healthy lifestyle of eating enough foods, of eating the right foods, and maintaining our health whether it's muscles or bone density and all of that stuff through resistance and cardio training, yeah, it's all about the long term. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on this right now, and I'm open to new information, but I hope this helps, and whatever you end up doing, make an informed decision. All right, there it is. Peace. Be sure to like and subscribe to The Varied Life, Retiring Overseas in Korea.